black storm coming. See the lightning strike. Black people rising.
Listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Those who have died have never left. The dead are not under the earth. They are in the rustling trees, they are in the groaning woods, they are in the crying grass, and they are in the moaning rocks. The dead are not under the earth. So I listen no more often to things than to beings. Listen no more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Listen no more often to things than to beings. Listen no more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters.
Miriam Makeba, Nina Simone, Odetta, Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, Abby Lincoln, Carmen McCreary, Simon,
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Umoja Circle. My name is Keith Smokey Johnson, and I hope you enjoyed that little montage of one of the great scholars one of them that we will be talking about today. The purpose for those of you who are new to the Umoja Circle, the purpose of the Umoja Circle is to correct errors where errors are found and to introduce facts where we find that so many of us are working on fiction when it comes to who we are as people of African descent. And also, I would like to express this principle is that only through dialogue can there be a shift in consciousness. And when there's a shift in consciousness, there will definitely be a shift in your world. The reason that we have Dr. Clark as the first person, and I introduced him through that video clip, that was a dedication to this great intellect and genius of a mind and the people he's influenced. And I wanted you to see that this brother has walked with giants, and he is a giant of a scholar. But the one thing that you're going to find in this discussion today, and I'm going to introduce my guests who would agree with me, is their love for books and his love for books. And that's one of the things that we want to share with you and our love for books. And with that, I would like to introduce my guest here today, Baba Anda Ma'at. Welcome to the Umoja Circle. He's an entrepreneur. He's a documentarian. He is a lecturer in his own right. He's a playwright. So this brother also has this great love for books, and I couldn't think of a better person to share this discussion with. As you can see in front of his desk, there are a myriad of books. When I talk on the Umoja Circle, I prepare for every show that I talk about, and this is how I prepare. I don't go on YouTube. I don't get a few video clips. I study. So you see, one thing you must understand, that knowing requires thinking, but thinking requires study. How about you, brother? How do you feel about that, what I said?
Well, brother, I feel, first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here with you.
Oh, good.
It's always, we've had many long, deep discussions about many things concerning our history and culture as a people.
Exactly.
And much of what we have talked about in the past, and of course I know in the future, will be based upon the books that we have read.
Always.
But we are very, grateful for those who have done the research and documented our story in these books that we have laid out on the table. So I'm just excited, just to have this opportunity to really just really open up the surface in many ways to encourage us as a people to understand the value of going into these books, but also in the value of these scholars who have researched. I mean, when you talk and open up with Dr. John Henry Clark, I mean, he's a giant among giants when it comes to our scholarship.
Exactly. The influence of the brother is overwhelming. There is a story of one, I think I heard one time by the brother who took over his job as director of the Africana and Puerto Rican Studies at Hunter College, where where he did many years and influenced hundreds and hundreds of people who went on also to become great scholars in their right under Dr. Clark's tutelage, and which he said that one of the things that he remembered, he was teaching in a on the side at the prison, state prison in New York, okay? And one time he asked Dr. Clark to come. He knew Dr. Clark was famous with all the accolades. Yeah. But then when he told his prison students that he was bringing this co-worker called Dr. Clark, the result of all the enthusiasm of the people that were in prison who knew this great man. It made him real, and the packed auditorium, because he had a little class, and they said, well, can we bring others? Yeah. And he was surprised by this enthusiasm for this brother, Dr. Clark. And it dawned on him that he said that Dr. Clark and the others that we're going to be talking about, there is, people don't realize that there is an urban network, a grassroots network of scholarship. That brothers like Dr. Clark and Naeem Akbar and Ivan Van Sertima and some of these other names might not be familiar with you, but we'll introduce you to go out into the urban jungle and community activists, grassroots activists. At the grassroots activists, we know about those folks.
Yeah. And the thing that really stands out is that Dr. Clark was a scholar activist.
That's exactly exactly.
And I really appreciate it, because I was first introduced to Dr. Clark, I think, in '80. My cousin, well, actually my uncle, used to record some of his lectures in New York City. And of course, when I went to New York in 1983, they gave me a recording, a video of Dr. Clark. And I took that recording all over the world, in the Air Force. But the idea is that many times I would pull that out because this was one of the lectures. He was going from ancient Africa through our history.
He would take you on a journey.
And I'm going to tell you, one of the things that always stood, that was amazing about Dr. Clark is that Dr. Clark could recite the books, the pages.
That's you and me both, brother. He'll tell you where to go. Why do you think I got some of these books I got listening? I still go on YouTube this very day and listen and to many of his lectures. That's I have issues with YouTube because there's so much nonsense on there. But if you are guided to the right sources,
that's right. That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
then Dr. Clark's still alive on YouTube. Dr. Ivan Van Serta, even though they're now with the ancestors, they are there. It does conserve its purpose. You can find a lot of his lectures there, and you can understand this way. He's like a gateway to our culture and our history, you know?
Yeah. You know, and it's interesting because, you know, I call it the university that on that YouTube sometimes, but you have to be intentional in what you're looking for on there.
That's my point.
And I'm like you. I go in there and I listen to Dr. Clark lectures, you know, and of course, and many of those other great scholars we're going to talk about. But the idea, though, is that his lectures are there, and then it directs us towards other scholarship.
He'll give you
other
pages
scholars.
and books, and he'll say, well, this, and he's so humble. You know, you can find this in this book, and he'll tell you about somebody who is a Caribbean writer, or somebody who's on the continent who's writing about the ancient struggles, the struggles against colonialism, and he'll let you know. And if you follow his teaching, another individual, it was a dedication to him at Hunter College, and that's where I got this video clip from, was that said that he always loved to teach. And even on his break at the cafeteria, a student would come by, sit down, and ask him a question. Next thing you know, he got a paper and pen and teaching. Then somebody else would be listening to Dr. As soon as Dr. Clark started talking, he draws people like bees to honey. And it was nothing to see a cloud of students walking down the hallway back to his office during his lunch break, and he's just teaching. And that's the thing that I like about him.
But he was a master teacher, and that's what he committed his life to, was researching, documenting our story, and teaching our story. You know, actually, Brother Wesley Snipes had done a film documenting his story, A Great and Mighty Walk.
Oh, yeah,
and
I saw
I
that
definitely
one.
recommend, if you have not seen that,
Great
to
and Mighty
really
Walk.
get a chance to view that, because it tells the story of Dr. Clark, but it really tells the story of our history, because as we walk with Dr. Clark through his great and mighty walk, we're really walking through our history as a people. And I'm telling you, it's an amazing story. And I think one other thing that's always stood out with Dr. Clark, he wrote a short story.
Oh, I think I know what you're
The boy who painted Christ black.
I think there was actually a movie done on HBO back in the 90s. And a lot of people didn't know that. If you heard that story or saw that, that was Dr. Clark's short story, right?
Yes.
The boy who
painted Christ black.
This was like in the 1930s or...
Yeah, well, he wrote this in 1940s.
But I mean the storyline.
Yeah, the story. Yeah, it's 1930. You're correct.
It was in the 1930s with, and they had this contest in this small town, and this young talented black boy. I bet you might have been him when he was young. But anyway, he was a great artist, and he painted Jesus black, and you can imagine the controversy that inspired.
And that was the thing about the story, was that he painted that, and then he submitted it as one of the in the contest, art contest, and of course during that time it was segregated schools, so but there was a white overseer. But the idea is that the school stood strong, and Wesley Snipes actually stars in that film. And he's as the principal of the school.
Yeah, he was the principal, because the principal stood up for him, yes.
And stood up for him. So Dr. Clark, was really a genius,
a highly intellectual phenomenon.
And I think we really have to take advantage of his lectures, his information.
Still pertinent to this very day, because one of the people we're going to be talking about is Marcus Garvey, and he had a saying that what humans have done, humans can do. And when Dr. Clark takes you on one of these gateway journeys into the ancient past, you see similar struggles of people that look like us, and the great empire that we had, that we could see. When I hear young people in the Generation X and whatever on these podcasts saying that we should be doing this and we should be doing that, and they don't understand that. Look at the books that tell you what we have already done. We've done all those things. We've had our own banks. We've had our own cultures. And yet you're saying we have proof that the Egyptians were black, yet we're still talking about that. This is the thing that sometimes, as an elder, I try not to let it drive me crazy, but I understand that it's not their fault what they do not know. But that's why we're doing this show, is to let you know that there are books.
That's right.
And if you don't go into these books, and we're using the models of these great scholars to show that that's how they did their scholarship. They went into the dark basements. They went into the archives they went overseas and looked. So everything we're saying is documented.
Yes.
And they were saying this 50, 60, 100 years ago, bro.
Yeah, because when you think about it, I mean, we have this technology now, so we have access to this information if we're looking for it. But at that time, they had to go into the libraries, and they had to go and dive into these books. And they did it, and they
we're following
extracted that information.
And I still follow their model of scholarship.
Yes.
I'm not saying I'm a scholar, but I think I am just like them. I had to be autodidactic, self-taught.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
They went on to teach in major universities. And I'm not. Some of these scholars we talking about, they went to the Oriental Institute of Chicago. Some of these scholars, they went to Stanford. They went to Oxford. They went to all that. They went to Harvard. The founder of Black History Month, second graduate of Harvard.
Yes.
So they went to, these universities, but like you said, they were grassroots. They brought that information to the grassroots people. And many of the people who would not always maybe had basically a high school education, but they went to the churches that would draw these scholars, and they did that doctor said urban grassroots network of scholarship, and that's what we want to bring to you.
Yeah, because the idea is we develop a community, and we bring that university scholarship to the community,
I like that.
And we connect it. And I think that's one thing that Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, and some of these other great scholars did. They brought that information into the community, though they were teaching at the university.
Exactly. They were teaching at all these great major universities. They had no problem going to these grassroots organizations and teaching the communities that surrounding them. One of my favorite quotes of Dr. Clark, I know there are many, is his famous quote that I always like to inspire me. There's this one here. History is a clock that a people use to tell their political and cultural time of day. It is also a compass that a people use to find themselves on the map of human geography. What great writing, The role of history is to tell a people what they have been and where they have been, what they are and where they are. But the most important role that history plays is that it has the function of telling the people where they still must go and what they still must become or be. This is the kind of scholarship. When you hear Dr. Clark speak like this poetry, the flow of the words, you're entranced, and it motivates you.
Yeah, and it's profound because in the essence of it, I think he's really speaking to, and I know I've heard you speak of Sankofa.
Sankofa, yes.
Returning to the source, going back and studying our history, extracting and pulling those things that we need in order to move forward.
I made the Sankofa bird my family symbol. Because I believe, like these great scholars said, that we have to create a culture the way I think it was Balawana Karengo said that you got to, the way people create themselves and introduce themselves to the world, okay? Every culture started with some group that created themselves. I don't care if the Romans, if you're in Western thought process, the Greeks, but the Egyptians, all these cultures started by creating these symbols and these type of iconography to change the way of people think. It shapes a group's mind if you follow these traditions. I also follow Kwanzaa's principles every day because it produces a particular actions that always will benefit the Black community because that's what that that wasn't a holiday, that celebration every year brings forth. How about you, brother?
Well, I'm like you, brother. with the principles of Kwanzaa, because that's celebration I always look forward to. And we just came out of Kwanzaa.
Yes, exactly.
But the idea, and this goes back to something you said earlier, brother, when you said we replace fiction with facts. But the idea is that we must replace that which is our culture with that which is our non-culture, which is not us as a people.
Us and them, yeah.
Yes, so the idea is that we have to engage in practices such as Kwanzaa, which is based upon principles rooted in Africa,
exactly,
that we bring forward and we incorporate today. So we're talking about unity and self-determination and collective work and responsibility, faith, and all these principles which are essential for us to become that which we were and that which we are destined to be.
Never too late to go back and fetch it. That's what the Sankofa means, and I make sure my children, my grandchildren understand. But they have to take their own journey, but they know, well, one day it'll might click that this is what Grandpa was talking about or Dad was talking about, all right? So it's part of me. In fact, the show, Umoja, first day of Kwanzaa. Your company, Ma'at.
Ma'at is, of course, God is Ma'at, truth, justice, and righteousness, but we talk about Ku'umbania, that's creativity with a purpose.
Okay.
So understanding that we must create with a purpose. So everything that, I mean, just looking at the books that we have laid out here, when you think about these men and women went into these books, went into the archives, extracted this information with a purpose to document our story in order to give us a pathway and an understanding of where we have come from and where we can go. So, brother, the work that you're doing here with Umoja Circle and the fact that all the times, every time you come on here, you're trying to share with us.
Shift that consciousness through dialogue.
That's
brother.
right.
That's the working principle of the Umoja Circle. I tried to introduce. I did shows on Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. I've done shows on Sheikh Anta Diop. I've tried to introduce these great scholars. So that's it. And I was influenced by people like Dr. John Henry Clark, who was the ancestors. He died in 98? He was born in 1915.
And I don't know the exact date.
Yeah, but I think it was around 98 or around there. I think it was at the age of 83. But the people he walked with, I have I love the fact that I was on this earth at the same time that he was, that I walked this earth with him.
And that's amazing, because when you talk about just the people that he walked with and they walked with him, of course, he talked about Malcolm. He knew Malcolm X. Of course, the great Kwame Nkrumah, the first prime minister of Ghana, knew
he was there.
He was there.
He worked for him.
Yes.
and he influenced him into the understanding of Pan-Africanism. That's what he wanted to do when he became the first president of Kwanzaa, become a united African, all the states. That was one of his goals, because of the influence of John Henry Clark. Now, before we go, we're going to be continuing this on the second show, but I want to start some of the images that we can talk about. Now, this is what was the image that was left on that video clip that had. And it says, and I always love this, another one of Dr. Clark's statements. To control a people, you must first control what they think about themselves and how they regard their history and culture. And when your conqueror makes you ashamed of your culture and your history, he needs no prison walls and no chains to hold you. Look at how our people are functioning. They're working on miseducation. We're still doing Black History Week, months, but we're still miseducated in many ways.
And I think that's Dr. Clark's mission and purpose, was to correct that. Arturi Schumberg, who Dr. Clark had went to New York.
The great book collector.
And he had told Dr. Clark that study your history, study European history, but really the missing pages of world history is Black history. And Dr. Clark took that mission on because he studied all of history, but he brought forward Black history to correct what you just showed there, that quote saying, look here, we've been miseducated, misinformed about the greatness of ourselves. Now I'm going to make sure we must learn the correct history. and I love Dr. Clark for what he contributed to, to removing that ignorance that, African people have not accomplished, undermining what we have not accomplished, but showing the things that we have accomplished.
And the thing is that it wasn't just, when he started out studying, he didn't have, like we have the Dr. Clark, the Van Sertima, all these books. He went to white scholars from Europe, okay? And one of the ones that he studied was a person named Godfrey Higgins, okay, who did a 2-volume book called Anacalypsis. I got two of those. And this was just a British, he wasn't no African standard, nothing to do with it. He was the British scholar, okay, in the 1830s. And he was doing a study to figure out, to understand the origins of many different civilizations. And he said this thing when he, that was very profound, that Dr. Clark turned me on to many years ago. This is what Godfrey Higgins said in 1838. I have found the black complexion or something relating to it whenever I have approached the origins of nations. Okay? These are the scholars that are out there that you're not being told about when you go to school, because you always talk about the Greeks and the Romans and all that. No, even the Greeks and the Romans know where they got their information from because they wrote it.
That's right.
All right? But Dr. Clark would teach you these things. He would say, hey, even white scholars, the ones who just want true scholarship, understood, for the truth's sake, that everywhere they look, the original origin of all these great civilizations. He's talking about China, talking about Asia. We have another book that we're going to talk about, most likely in the next show, about the origins of a lot of these cultures that are written in these books. Now
I know you, brother. You gotta, because you showed me some of the great scholars that you have read, and I know you wanted to try to just share with the community, for those who would see this, program, some of the people that we, are impressed and really acknowledge in our own development, because like we're striving to continue to gain knowledge and to share knowledge, but we have the resources, some great scholars. So I know you had spoken of Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Renoka Rashidi, of course, going back to Dr. Carter G. Woodson. But I'm saying it's a lot of people that we need to acknowledge, because we're standing on their show.
And we will continue to show and doing that. Like you said, Carter G. Woodson, Dr. Henry Clark, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. John G. Jackson, all understood that if the history of another group is imposed on a people and those people's own unique history is ignored, serious problems would occur. Look what happened. Look what we're doing. Look we call ourselves the N-word.
Yes.
This is the issue that we have, and we're going to discuss those great scholars also. We just wanted to honor, to me, one of my favorites, Dr. Henry Clark. So, Brother Ma'at, Brother Baba Anda Ma'at, thank you for sharing your time, and we will continue. I can't wait to continue our discussion with you.
Yes,
and to you, until next time, peace, hotep, bye-bye.